Hare Krishna, everyone. Hare Bull. Thanks for coming. For those who are coming, and for everyone who isn't coming, that's fine too, because I'm mostly doing this for myself. Impromptu reading because it's Ekadasi and I finished all my japa and I have some free time. So let's read the Gita, starting with the Invocation Mantra. I'm going to take a quick look and try and do it from memory. Gyananjana. Om Gyanatimirandasya. What's that next? Om Gyanatimirandasya. Gyananjana Salakaya. Gyananjana Salakaya. Chaksur Unmilitam Yena Tashme Sri Gurave Namaha. Okay, that's the best one so far. Still don't have it memorized though. Really close. Just one or two more times I'll have it. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. All right, kiddos. We are here on Chapter 3, verse 22 in the Bhagavad Gita as it is, 72 edition. O son of Pertha, there is no work prescribed for me within all the three planetary systems, nor am I in want of anything, nor have I need to obtain anything, and yet I am engaged in work. Okay, this is a fantastic verse to glorify Dharma. It's one of my new favorites. Let's add it to my notes. Let's see if it's already in here. There's a lot from chapter 3, but not 322. Even Krishna works always. Pretty long purport here too. And we'll start out by reading the verses Prabhupada quotes from the Svetasvatar Upanishad 6 and verses 7 to 8. The Supreme Lord is the controller of all other controllers, and he is the greatest of the diverse planetary leaders. Everyone is under his control. All entities are delegated with particular power only by the Supreme Lord. They are not supreme themselves. He is also worshipable by all demigods and is the supreme director of all directors. He is therefore transcendental to all kinds of material leaders and controllers and is worshipable by all. There is no one greater than him, and he is the supreme cause of all causes. He does not possess bodily form like that of an ordinary living entity. There is no difference between his body and his soul. He is absolute. All his senses are transcendental. Any one of his senses can perform the action of any other sense. Therefore, no one is greater than him or equal to him. His potencies are multifarious, and thus his deeds are automatically performed as a natural sequence. All right, that last sentence is actually the only part that confused me. I get that his potencies are multifarious. Oh, okay. I think this is part of the glorifying part of the verse. When it's saying his deeds are automatically performed as a natural sequence, I think it's just saying he's so great that he does everything in his sleep, so to speak. Continuing on, one who must receive the results of work has some designated duty. But one who has nothing to achieve within the three systems certainly has no duty, and yet Krishna is engaged on the battlefield, and he's above all the rules and regulations, and yet he does not do anything that violates the scriptures. Moving on, 23. 4. If I did not engage in work, O Partha, certainly all men would follow my path. Another good Dharma verse reminding us how we're all playing the follow the leader game. And, the ultimate leader is Sri Krishna, and he has no duty to perform, really. But because he's the leader of all leaders, he has to be the best example, so that others may follow. Of course, many of us are not following. That's why you're listening to this now, and that's why I'm speaking it now, because we are imperfect and we have this chronic disease where we think, oh, maybe we are God, or we have some power. The whole universe revolves around us. I mean, this is a disease. This is not actually based on reality. It's based on our illusion of reality. Interesting. Last bit from Prabhupada here. From the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is understood that Lord Krishna was performing all the religious duties at home and out of home as required of a householder. Okay, 24. If I should cease to work, then all these worlds would be put to ruination. I would also be the cause of creating unwanted population, and I would thereby destroy the peace of all sentient beings. Okay, some more of the usual from Prabhupada, but I will read the verse from the Bhagavatam he references, which is Bhagavatam 10:33-30. One should simply follow the instructions of the Lord and his empowered servants. Their instructions are all good for us, and any intelligent person will perform them as instructed. However, one should guard against trying to imitate their actions. One should not try to drink the ocean of poison in imitation of Lord Shiva. I'm laughing because I really love that verse. It's so obvious and yet so difficult to realize, and so glad I'm reading it now to keep reminding myself of hopefully being able to actually realize that one day soon. And Prabhupada also referencing ganja here. Let's read about that. Without such power as the Ishvaras, the great controllers, who are super powerful, we cannot imitate them. Sorry, I was paraphrasing there. But anyway, moving on. Lord Shiva drank poison to the extent of swallowing an ocean, but if any common man tries to drink even a fragment of such poison, he'll be killed. There are many pseudo-devotees of Lord Shiva who want to indulge in smoking ganja, marijuana, and similar intoxicating drugs, forgetting that by so imitating the acts of Lord Shiva, they are calling death very near. Similarly, there are some pseudo-devotees of Lord Krishna who prefer to imitate the Lord in his Rasa Lila, or dance of love, forgetting their inability to lift Govardhan Hill. It is best, therefore, that one not try to imitate the powerful, but simply follow their instructions. Nor should one try to occupy their posts without qualification. There are so many, quote, incarnations, unquote, of God without the power of Supreme Godhead. The pro-ganja guy in me would say, well, wait a second, Shri Guru Dev. you cannot overdose on ganja. So you cannot, die from ganja. So, you're not calling death very near. Okay, that's materially true, but what Prabhupada says here still remains spiritually true, namely that by imitating Lord Shiva and smoking a lot of ganja, you are calling your spiritual death very near, assuming that it is that's what you're doing. You're smoking a lot, trying to imitate Lord Shiva or something like this. I mean, if you want to do some recreation, but don't lie to yourself and say that it's some bona fide, religious thing. Maybe it is sometimes, but 90% of the time it is not. Moving on to text 25. As the ignorant person perform their duties with attachment to results. Similarly, the learned may also act, but without attachment, for the sake of leading people on the right path. Wow. That's I'm really this verse is glorifying me in my own actions of late. Um, it's so funny. I sometimes even do the opposite. I pretend like I'm attached to something. Well, this is like with my students. I'm not actually attached to, like, I'm not actually upset when they're naughty, but I have to pretend like they're upset and scold them sternly so that they get it. Um, but for a more advanced, someone who's not a child anymore, and no, I'm not talking about many adults around me because they are still children, but for an actual adult um, who is ready to sincerely begin this path of acting without attachment, um, a learned man or woman, well, will naturally act without attachment. But the end here is very um, significant. Loka Shangraham, leading the people in general. Loka means planet normally, right? So it could be the people of the planet, the people of the world. Um, that's another reason we can act without attachment. We can do it to glorify the Supreme, to as devotion to Krishna, but we can also do it as teachers to show other people the peace and bliss of being able to act without attachment, because that's what it is. I mean, it's more like peaceful than a blissful thing, but when you see how stressed out and suffering people are being attached to the results of their work, and here comes along some guy who has no attachment and seems to be just so peaceful all the time, that can inspire others to follow suit. The important caveat mentioned by Prabhupada here is that someone in Krishna consciousness may even act exactly like the ignorant person, seemingly too attached to material activities, but the difference is desire. So one who is engaged in such activities for the satisfaction of his sense gratification, whereas the other is engaged for the satisfaction of Krishna. Therefore, the Krishna conscious person is required to show the people how to act and how to engage the results of action for the purpose of Krishna consciousness. Moving on, 26. I like being able to get a lot of verses done here. Very nice. Let not the wise disrupt the minds of the ignorant who are attached to fruitive action. They should not be encouraged to refrain from work, but to engage in work in the spirit of devotion. Oh my God, this is a very critical verse. The most quick reference I'm thinking of is in the New Testament, where Jesus says, "Do not cast pearls before swine." And so just as the pearl is to the swine, the wise is to the ignorant. And so the wise Just as in the previous verse, Krishna says they may simply act without attachment so as to, what I would say, for the sake of, or to inspire, maybe passively inspire people to follow the right path. But then this next verse is more specific, and Krishna says more specifically, don't try to actively teach others about this, especially those who are fully stuck in tamaguna. Um, they must keep working. Yeah, and so I think what Krishna's hinting at is that there's this potential. I've seen this. I mean, this is very common in America. I've seen this before, where um, especially with like Zen Buddhism and stuff like that, someone will see a great master who is so detached that he doesn't do any work at all. So then they follow suit. They just sit down and do nothing all day and think that they are some, wise master, and that's a trap that those that many people fall to. So one thing Krishna is alluding to here is to not fall for that trap. Um, Now, as always, when I see a word like devotion in the colloquial translation by Prabhupada, I um, like to look at the word for word translation to see what's actually there. Because a lot of times when we use that word devotion, I take that to be bhakti. But as I suspected, that word bhakti does not show up in this verse. Not because Krishna doesn't care about teaching us about bhakti, but because this is chapter 3, and he doesn't use that word as much until later on. So I'm just going to read the word for word, beginning to end. It says, "Do not disrupt the intelligence. Do of the foolish, attached to fruitive work. Dovetailed all work, learned, all engaged, practicing." So the word for devotion, I believe Prabhupada is referring to josayet, meaning dovetailed. And yeah, this is why the Gita, as it is, that word for word translation, you get a different layer of beauty. To be honest, it's a bit more advanced. Prabhupada is making it very easy for us. That's why this edition of the Gita is so special. It's so you can get into the the practical advanced stage very quickly, but for no offense to others, but to scholars like me, to philosophers, people who really, and linguists, people who really want to get into the deep technical stuff, um, you have to look at the word for word because you'll miss out on these things. So what Krishna is doing here is he's using this word josayet instead of bhakti, because we're not there yet. Like I said, this is chapter 3, and it's very important that you understand these foundational aspects of yoga in a secular, non-devotional context, and get good at them in that context in just a pure dharmic sense, so that when later you start doing it as a purely devotional act, it has so much more potency. It's another thing I've experienced in my life. So yeah, I'm biased with that, but I'm speaking from experience. It's interesting. Do not disrupt the intelligence of the foolish who are attached to fruitive work. The learned, vidvan. So the foolish are those who are attached to fruitive work, but the learned dovetail all their work and are always engaged. That's like my own translation. That's in between the word for word and Prabhupada. Prabhupada is Bhaktivedanta Swami. So everything in here, what Krishna says, the immediate next thing Prabhupada is going to do is bam, Bhaktivedanta right in there. What does this have to do with bhakti, and how does it relate to Vedanta? That's why Prabhupada will often reference the Upanishads, the Bhagavatam. That's Vedanta. It's verified by Shastra. That's Vedanta. And then bhakti means the Bhakti Vedanta. The bhakti in Bhakti Vedanta means everything. There's one aim. You never steer away from the one central topmost aim, which is bhakti. It is true. I'm not quite there yet, and I'm more of a mystic and a jnani than a Vedanta guy, but I like both. Anyway, 27. Or maybe a little bit in this purport here I want to read. A realized soul in Krishna consciousness should not disturb others in their activities or understanding, but he should act by showing how the results of all work can be dedicated to the service of Krishna. This is how you preach right here. Yeah, I'm still just so obsessed with the Dharma. Especially in the West, I really want to teach people this secular Dharma stuff. It's way more exciting than going straight to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But then again, like, we really are that degraded where nothing else will work. Anyway, the learned Krishna conscious person may act in such a way that the ignorant person working for sense gratification may learn how to act and how to behave. Although the ignorant man is not to be disturbed in his activities, still, a slightly developed Krishna conscious person may directly be engaged in the service of the Lord without waiting for other Vedic formulas. For this fortunate man, there is no need to follow the Vedic rituals, because in direct Krishna consciousness, one can have all the results simply by following the prescribed duties of a particular person. That is so interesting. Part of that reminded me of my own life when I was when I didn't have any Vedic formulas. I didn't have ISKCON, I didn't have other devotees. I just had this one Gita, and I was alone in Asia for years. And I was a practicing devotee, but I didn't have any other sadhana. I didn't have anything. I just had this Gita, and I had one recording called Tsunami Kirtan by Vyasaki Das. This little 15-minute kirtan I've been listening to on repeat for years. It was the only kirtan I had for years. It's so funny. I guess it worked so well, and I never even thought to look at another kirtan. Oh my God. Oh, Krishna is so funny. Oh. He perfectly reciprocates with us based on what we want. And Krishna knows me. I do not want any damn religion. I don't want ISKCON. I don't want any other damn megalithic institutional religion. They're all garbage. It's in my blood, too, of being a heretic in this way. And Krishna organized my life so perfectly so that I could come right to him, skip past all that crap, and still be so hankering for him, stuck in this world where there's just so much stuff that isn't Krishna, that I had to go in, I had to get initiated, I had to go do all this stuff. Just like what he's talking about in these verses, even if it's just for the sake of leading the other people to follow. God, I don't know why it's bothering me thinking about this. Is it my own failure? Really not sure what's happening right now. So we'll move on. Verse 27. The bewildered spirit soul, under the influence of the three modes of material nature, thinks himself to be the doer of activities, which are in actuality carried out by nature. Okay, this is a very cut and dry verse here. There's no need for a purport here for me. What does it mean to be under the influence of the modes? It means you think you are doing things. You're not. The modes are doing the thing. So when you transcend the modes, that means by definition, you are not thinking yourself the doer of things. Although you may actually do things, but you never think of yourself as the doer because you are not most of the time. I mean, eventually we get to the point where we have pure desire and it manifests instantly without anything to do with the modes, I guess. But still, even for many advanced people, all these activities, all the karma, all the things happening, 99% of it is the modes, is your past karma, is other living entities affecting things. There's very little things that we and we alone can do. The only thing that I have found that I am truly in control of, and even that I'm not even in control of it, is breath. I can control my breath. That's the only thing I can think of that's really mine. And it's not even mine. And it's not even in my control all the time. Like when I'm speaking and reading right now, I have some awareness of the breath. Like I have to like breathe at the finish of a thought to prepare for the next bunch of thoughts and speakings happening. But to really be fully in control of my breath, I have to give up everything else because it's hard to really focus only on your breath. But when you do get to that point where you can do that, and then everything else that you desire or do flows from or stems from the breath, then you're really mindful. Then you have some real awareness and control in your life. We never have full control, but compared to the complete utter lack of control you had before you had control of the breath, the control you get from controlling your breath after is like a world of difference. It's another thing I've experienced, and I'd like to go back to be honest. My mind, my personal desire, which I don't know how tainted it is by the modes, but I would like to stop doing japa. I would like to focus on reading the Gita and practicing breathing. And to me, reading the Gita means the clock just shifted to 5:40, which is number 9 of Krishna. So I do take that as a good sign that I could. Well, I already know that it's good for me, so I don't like actually need another sign to verify that. But I did take this vow, and japa is Krishna himself, and I do like japa. But oh man, if I could just breathe. If I could just get back into that breathing pranayam samadhi, oh my God. Man, so much bliss. But it's impersonal bliss. Japa is really advanced. So I'd rather be bad at something advanced than good at something a little lower on the totem pole there. Purport is saying much of the same stuff. Yeah, and it's false ego. That's why you're taking credit for doing things. And being bewildered by the false ego, it makes us forget our eternal relationship with Krishna. Verse 28. One who is in knowledge of the absolute truth, O mighty armed, does not engage himself in the senses and sense gratification, knowing well the differences between work and devotion and work for fruitive results. Okay, once again, let's see what devotion is in the word for. Whoa! Really short verse, but a really long translation. Okay, let's just read the word for word. The knower of the absolute truth. But, O mighty armed one, works under material influence. Differences, senses, in sense gratification, being engaged, thus thinking, never becomes attached. So one who has this great knowledge, it doesn't say not. Oh, there's only one na, never. And it doesn't really mention work and devotion. Well, it does mention gunaha guneshu, sense gratification. I like how those two words are. Okay, so there are differences between sense gratification and works under the material influence. But the knower of the absolute truth never becomes attached to either the senses or the modes. The senses or karma that comes from the modes, guna karma, works under material influences. Interesting translation here. This verse I would want to look up Hridayananda Goswami's his word for word translation of this verse. I bet his would be different from mine, which is also different from Prabhupada's. There's a very interesting way, so many ways you can translate this. But in the end, it's a self-evident verse. I think we don't even need to go to the purport. It's just more of the same. Moving on, 329. Bewildered by the modes of material nature, the ignorant fully engage themselves in material activities and become attached. But the wise should not unsettle them, although these duties are inferior due to the performer's lack of knowledge. Okay, that's 2 times almost in a row Krishna has said the same thing. So, darn, I got to really self-reflect now. 2 times almost in a row, with just a few verses from each other, Krishna is saying, the wise should not unsettle the ignorant. Really do not cast pearls before swine. Just smile and, oh my God, I totally get the lesson now. Oh man, for the record, for those of you who are ready to get the gem of today's class, my realization right now was about other devotees living near me. That's who Krishna is referring to as the ignorant, people who are stuck under the modes. I mean, they are doing devotional stuff. That's great, but I mean, I have the lesson I need to learn is that I have a habit of unsettling people who just need to continue doing what they're doing, and it's not my place to command them out of ignorance or anything. I just have to lead by example. That's what Krishna is telling us to do here. Work without attachment. Just continue to be more and more detached and more devotional. So you're detached from the results of your work, but at the same time, more and more attached to doing your work as a offering to Krishna. I've gotten really good at the detachment, and now it's time for me slowly to start working for Krishna's sake, which is such a stupendous task. I haven't even seriously thought about engaging in that once. Seriously, I haven't 7 years or No, about 8 years I've been a devotee. Not once have I seriously. No. Actually, before I was a devotee, I was doing pure devotion. That's really weird. Oh, God. This, like, all these rules and regulations really get in the way of the the way I'd like to do it, which is just for me. It's a totally personal thing. Once again, I said I'm more of a mystic. I'm not really a bhakta, so I have a very personal relationship with Krishna inside me that I really would like to care for. That means living alone, just as Krishna says in the Gita, um, and basically concocting, not concocting, but sometimes I'm just all over the place. Sometimes I need to like make a painting for Krishna. Sometimes I need to make food for him. But when you're living in a society, in a community, and other people need you to do things, and if you want to serve the other devotees, which is sometimes better than serving Krishna, then that's what I've taken up on myself. Um, and it's tough sometimes. We'll see how it goes, eh? Well, Prabhupada is saying something a little different here. Men who are ignorant cannot appreciate activities in Krishna consciousness, and therefore Lord Krishna advises us not to disturb them and simply waste valuable time. But the devotees are more kind than the Lord because they understand the purpose of the Lord. Consequently, they undertake all kinds of risks, even to the point of approaching ignorant men to try to engage them in the acts of Krishna consciousness, which are absolutely necessary for the human being. Wow, quite a paradox, totally destroyed by Prabhupada here. So the beginning level is what Krishna says here, where we don't disturb and waste our time with these people. Oh, God. But these pure devotees like Srila Prabhupada are they just can't take this advice, or they don't have time to take the advice because they just transcended it, because they actually have the ability to save the ignorant. Geez, I don't know. Is Prabhupada talking to himself here? And mostly to his only to the people close to him who can get it, that his first disciples too, who were so fired up that they did undertake all kinds of risks and were imprisoned, preaching in communist Soviet Union, for instance. They were undergoing all kinds of stuff to do this work. um, when you have that Shakti, when you're close enough to a pure devotee, yeah, it's everything changes. But even though as I see myself, um, I really want to stick to the Gita and what Krishna's telling me to do. Um, as lazy as I am, as horrible as my preaching is, I feel like I got to stick. I've veered too far away from Krishna's instructions in the Gita, which is what it all was, beginning and end for me, was just this Gita and following it exactly as Krishna says, with Prabhupada's purports as well. But really, what Krishna tells me directly in the Gita, that's what I like to follow. Um, and I shouldn't, like my conscience that tells me all the time when I think of maybe preaching to others, oh, don't bother them. they're so, they're so, they're not going to get it. They might buy a book from you, but they're not going to get it, you know. And that has been verified because I have distributed a few books recently, and like giving out my card, my number. No one talks to me. No one follows up. Maybe they will later, but um, the other side of that, though, is that when you do fully follow the Gita, as Krishna says it here, you have to follow it fully from all aspects. So when Krishna says, the wise should not unsettle them, that's because it fits in with everything else Krishna says in the Gita, such as living alone. And this whole like yukta vairagya idea that you can, just do whatever you want in Krishna's service, that's all fine and well and true, but it's a different bhav. That's a Lord Chaitanya bhav, not a Lord Krishna on Kurukshetra bhav. Man, and it's such a mess. I'm so stubborn. I'm so unwilling to really get into this Chaitanya thing. I'm just not from this time or place. I knew it since I was born here. I don't belong in this country, definitely not. And those times when I was living in Asia doing the Dharma around other Dharmis, there were times when I was able to get so good at it so easily that I thought, man, these Asians aren't even Asian enough for me. And like maybe like like 200, 500 years ago would be a little bit more appropriate to like how my ethos, my adhikari is from birth. But what am I going to do? I really think they're at odds. I think the Bhagavad Gita and the Chaitanya Charitamrita, I think they are at odds with each other. They are Krishna just the same, but the bhav is so different that I don't think you can fully commit to both. I think you have to choose one. I've already made my choice, but I'm trying to realize, I'm trying to meditate on this for years now. Am I just being stubborn, or am I being, young and stupid, and should I just get with the program? Um, but it's not in my nature. I've gone on Harinam a few times. I think it's fun and it's cool, but it's not me. I need to be devoting myself to Krishna the way I know works, because it already did work. Jeez. I'll get in trouble, though. I'll be getting in so much trouble with other ISKCON devotees. Maybe I'll become a Christian and do that for a while. But I'm laughing because it's fun. It's blissful. That's what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be just all blissful all the time. So that's what it is. And by actually following it this way, that is actually Chaitanya's vibe, nicely enough. All right, I already read the purport. All right, so we'll stop there, and next time we will begin on verse 30, 330, which is 6. Where are we here? That's right, kiddos. Chapter 3, verse 30, next time. Thanks for playing. And Hare Krishna. Hare Rama.